Hey everyone, my name is Andrea Berry. I'm the Science and STEM Supervisor with Knox County School, and I'm here today with my colleague, Mallory.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Mallory Sterling. I'm the district STEM facilitator for Knox County Schools.
And we're so excited to share with you today. And we want to come up front and say we have really tried to embed some STEM careers systematically through our district in K through 8 learning. And in that process, we have failed and we have succeeded. And so we're here today just to be really transparent with you guys and share some of what we have. Again, our names are Andrea Berry and Mallory Sterling, and our Twitter handles are there at the bottom. If you're a Twitter expertise there, then please follow us on Twitter. We'd love to share information on Twitter and learn from Twitter as well. Okay, so let's begin with getting some of your thoughts. This is called a waterfall chat strategy. What are some obstacles in showcasing STEM careers in the classroom? And this can be in the K through 8 classroom, or if we have any high school friends joining us, feel free to tell us what are some obstacles. So first, go ahead and type that answer in the chat, and then go ahead and enter it, and we'll see what pops up. Okay, we've got a great one. Students unaware of possibilities that are out there in the small world view. We're going to talk about that today, Elizabeth. That's a great one. It's hard to know enough about each career to share with students. We've ran into that obstacle as well. Teachers don't know the career sometimes, so how do we navigate that obstacle? We're going to share that today. Time and money. That's great, Tammy. Thank you. Time constraints. Hey, Kate. Good to see you. Right career, right alignment. Oh, we've got a treat for you today, Jessica, because we do have some career alignments to our science standards we're going to share. Mallory, do you see anything you want to pick up?
I like having access to actual people who work in those careers. Kenya, we have come across that as well, and hopefully we have some solutions. Lack of knowledge of outreach avenues.
Great. Large enough network and being aware of all the possibilities. That is so true. I feel like I'm learning something new every day when we're trying to build this career with our teachers and possibilities and doing it in a systematic way. So just like you guys have picked up on, we too echo all of your obstacles. And we have not navigated all of this obstacle course, but we certainly have had the opportunity to think through some of them. And we are going to share some resources with you today and just be, again, transparent in some of the things that we've learned. So that's our goals, is to share some of our successes and share some of our obstacles. We're going to give you some support documents and conversations with partners, community partners, and then some documents that your general education teachers can also use. And then we're going to provide a Padlet today that you guys can network with each other, because we all know a little bit, and maybe together we'll know even more in that network opportunity.
Okay, so we all know that career highlights in the general education classroom are important, but why are they important? So we'll look at some data that gives us some information. We are going to do a strategy called the I2 strategy. So first I want you to identify something you see in this data. What does it mean? So I'll give you a second to do that. And as you have identified something, now I want you to interpret that information. So what does that mean?
So Mallory, I want to model that really quick. Yeah. I noticed that there's electrical engineers, and I see that there's two different colors meaning two different things. So I interpret that we are not going to have enough electrical engineers in the near future to fill the job positions.
Yeah, that's great, Andrea. So this is actually data from the Tennessee Workforce Development. It's some data that they put out in 2019, which is their latest STEM plan and information. So by 2026, these are the projected job openings that we will have in Tennessee. And the darker blue color are the candidates that we will actually have to fill those positions. And on the next slide, let's do the same thing. So go ahead and identify something that you see and then interpret that information. So you probably noticed that there are some STEM careers that have that will have rapid growth by 2026. So it's from 2016 to 2026. And once again, this is from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development.
So you've probably heard all day about the demand of jobs. I mean, we heard that in our opening session today, and what a neat opening session it was, learning about pretty much a new branch of the military that is going to be space exploration and space, overseeing some of that in space. So we know the demand's out there, so that was our problem. What do we do about it? We've got teachers that went to school to be teachers who are supposed to make connections to careers, and our students were only really getting career guidance once they were in high school, limited sometime to their CTE experience, and their STEM and maybe some STEM and career exploration in middle school. Like we always offered a career fair in middle school at some of our schools and even district-wide. But our problem was we really weren't reaching all of our students, and we still aren't, but we're thinking through this problem and making some changes. So we're going to talk through what that looks like. So our question is, how does KCS provide more opportunities for our students to have career exposure? And we've already had some neat things going on. Our CTA classrooms were fabulous in our school district, and that's including some of our middle school CTE classrooms. We're doing such a great job in high school. We had some career fairs going on, like I already told you, but then we had a lot of things not going on in our district. So we picked a couple of buckets that we thought could be good levers to start really making a career focus beyond those CTE classrooms in the secondary realm. And so then we kind of put together a plan. See, we knew that if we didn't expose kids to careers by age 10, then we had less likelihood of really engaging them into a STEM career. And it wasn't just about kids, our students, being in STEM careers. It's about just, even if they choose not to be in a STEM career, it's about career awareness and also recognizing STEM in our world and recognizing the impact that STEM makes on our world. You see, in order for a student to be curious about a career, they have to know something about it. There has to be some knowledge before there's curiosity. So we knew we had to highlight some careers in our regular ed classrooms. So our plan was to systematically bring career awareness beyond that CTE classroom. And we're going to highlight for you today some ways we did that and some lessons learned. Okay, so we're going to first look at the K-8 science classroom. We had opportunity a few years ago, just a couple of years ago, when the new standards rolled out. Those new standards rolled out with a three-dimensional focus. So we had cross-cutting concepts, our core disciplinary core ideas, and then our engineering design practices. And especially in K through 8, we're really fortunate with these new standards in that not only do we have science and engineering practices, which is the skill and the employability skills and the ability to, and the benchmarks in executing the science and engineering that we wanted our students to have, but we also had a second piece there, which were actual ETS or engineering and technology standards. So we knew there was some opportunity here, one with introducing engineering in a different way to our classrooms, but also with aligning some of our classrooms with a focus. So our instructional sequence changed. Our instructional sequence changed, or we're hoping it changed across the board, or we're trying to make it change is really the best way to say that. Into more of our 5E model, where we start with a phenomenon or a real life problem, and we work through that. And then we found in that 5E model that we had opportunities to make connections to careers. So what we did is we actually took all of our science standards, we picked a career connection, and then put either the general cluster or the Tennessee cluster with our CTE clusters that it aligned to. So on the page that you are on listening to us today, if you scroll down, you will see an elementary and a middle school career alignment to all the science standards. Now, this is just a first step. The second step would be, what are these careers? How do they actually fit? And we're actually playing in our some of our secondary biology classes with case studies. That's another really great way in high school to bring in careers, because usually a case study has to highlight a career when you are unpacking the science around a case study. So you will just see K through 8 today. We're working on some high school moves. Maybe that we'll save that one for next time. But if you'll take just a second, we want to provide just a few minutes for you to look through these resources. And then if you have any questions, post them in the chat, or any noticings or wonderings, you're welcome to post those in the chat. So Mallory, what would maybe be one way we could use this in the classroom?
Yeah, so oftentimes when I'm working specifically with elementary school teachers, we look at this document, especially elementary STEM teachers, to figure out how they can support. Oh, I love that GIF. Yay, this is great. We specifically look at, as an elementary STEM teacher, how can I support the science teacher? So we'll use this document, and then the STEM teacher can plan a lesson, and that gives them the ability to collaborate with the science teacher and show them, hey, I'm supporting what you're doing in the science classroom in my STEM classroom.
And we found that teachers are open to the document just because they didn't know where to start before then. The depth of the content just does not get very deep when you're looking at K through 5 as far as deep content knowledge to really connect to a career. So we had to help make that connection for teachers. We're fortunate that we do have a curriculum that highlights a career within our elementary science curriculum, but this document did help with some of those conversations.
And I think someone even said in the chat to begin with, the hard part about exposing careers is your lack of knowledge of careers. So this document allows our teachers to say, oh, what is a conservation biologist? And then they can look that up and use it in their classroom. Okay, so the next opportunity that we saw to expose students to STEM careers were elementary STEM camps.
So we were really fortunate, and those of you who have gone to grant sessions before, I don't want to lose you. Stay with me, because we're going to scale this and scaffold this for you. But we were fortunate to receive a grant. The STEM department in Knox County received a grant that was an Educational Innovation Research federal grant. And we were so thankful to be part of this grant and receive it, because it really helped us think creatively and have money to be innovative in our thinking on implementing STEM in our classrooms. So the idea of this grant, again, we want it to be scalable because we want to be able to continue the work after this. So we've learned some really great lessons, and some of those lessons have been around the career awareness around our elementary grades 3 through 5. Okay. So when you look at this, the idea of the grant was systematically preparing students for the workplace. And that kind of became our theme of all of our work, is how do we systematically really introduce careers. So we took about 200 students at 10 sites, and they had a 5-to-1 ratio of adult or student to adult mentor. And we highlighted 40 careers within the scope of a year. And in this work, this is beyond the school day. So there are 4 STEM camps that a cohort of students went through and were introduced to those careers during those 4 weeks of camp. So putting that part in perspective, we wouldn't expect anybody to do 40 careers in 1 week. So it was 4 weeks of that.
So to kind of echo what Andrea just said, we really needed a systematic way to work with our community partners, because we did this across Knox County. We had different schools doing one-off partnerships, but our STEM camps allowed us to really figure out how to make a meaningful partnership with our partners. So you'll actually see here are a list of a few partners that we've worked with within our STEM camps. You'll notice like TVA, Regal. So those are big corporations that you've heard of, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, but we do have some privately owned entities. Harrison Construction is here in Knoxville, a very small construction company. Innovative Designs, that's an engineering firm here. Zoo Knoxville. So we really developed a plan that we think works well, that we can scale up for the rest of the district that we've, worked with just our STEM camps.
And we had so many schools coming to us saying, I want to be able to bring in a partner, but I don't know who. I don't know how to have that conversation, and I don't know what to ask for. And so this really started to give us, we're starting to build a bank of our community resources. And our district is a large district in Tennessee. So you can imagine all the one-offs with our schools. And again, we're trying to have a systematic plan. So if you're a principal, or if you're a school leader or instructional coach, or just or a district leader, then how can you systematically think about your community partners and match them with the right schools and have the right conversations for the right fit? And that's what we're trying to start to build, is a little bit of a database of that. So.
Yeah, and so with this camp, we have 3 different types of partnerships that we really focus on. So we have a year-long challenge mentor. That partner works with one specific site for the entire year of the camp. So Andrea had kind of mentioned that our camp is 4 weeks, and it's 4 weeks parallel to the school year. And we'll talk more about the logistics of the camp in the future, but I want you to know this partner really has time to go into depth with the students about their careers, about what type of education you need, and then about what types of problems do they face within their industry. So Radio Systems Corporation, PetSafe, you probably have heard of their products. It's based out of Knoxville. Their partner came to us and said, hey, this is a problem that we're actually working on in our industry, and it was to develop a product that a dog can travel in a vehicle long distance. So they had to think about safety, what materials, how to make money off of that product. Our students are currently solving that problem. And guys, I'm so excited. They're going to present their presentation to the partner June 4th. So I'm excited to see that. I'm super invested in this one. But the students worked with that partner. They talked to her about, okay, how do you decide what product to use? How do you market this to potential clients. So this is a really neat part of our program that we've been able to do. Then we have just one-day site challenge mentors. So we have like the Muse, or even the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Yo STEM, that's a small nonprofit here in Knoxville. They just come out to the sites and do like a one-day learn about my career or learn about something in STEM. Students have fun with that. That was really important during COVID to kind of navigate that. Like the Great Smoky Mountains came during spring break, but it was outside and socially distant. So we've worked through that. And then we have our actual site visits. So we work with partners to plan field trips or learning expeditions, as we call them, so that the students can really see, this is what it's like to work in this industry. This is, if I wanted to work here, this is what it would look like. This is who I would work with. So we do have 3 different types of partnerships, and we really not only cater to our need, but to the need of the partner as well. So to kind of go back to what I was saying about the STEM camp, what are our logistics? So we meet 1 week in July, fall break, spring break, and then 1 week at the very beginning of June. And that's our cohort that our 20 to 25 kids work through. So the idea is that it's parallel to the school year, and that this exposure to STEM and STEM careers and industry partners, hopefully these students are outperforming their peers that are not attending the camp. We have seen growth. We can successfully say that we have executed this entire camp during COVID. That's something I'm really proud of. I know Andrea is really proud of it. I always say that. But students really get immersed into the program. They get to work closely with partners, where we saw in the past that a partner would come out to a school, talk about their job, and then that was kind of it. But throughout this STEM camp, they keep up with the partner. They get to talk to them often and work on a problem that they deal with in their industry. And we really think it's made an impact and will continue to impact our students moving forward. So what was working with career exposure in STEM camp? So we wanted to be intentional about the curriculum. So we also have modules that our teachers teach, lessons, where they can say, hey, if you're interested in this, this is what a biologist does. That's just an example. We partnered with community partners to highlight a job in that industry, and completed a PBL. So we talked about that year-long partnership where the students solved a problem. And then multiple exposures to the same community partner within that industry, so that students truly understood what that career field is like.
And we're not taking anything away from the great career fairs, and because sometimes that does it. But one thing we think we will end up taking away from this grant is being systematic in partnerships and saying, what kind of commitment do you want? Do you want more of a year-long commitment with a smaller group? Or do you want to touch several schools and just kind of come in and bring, something from your, a drone or whatever from your work site, and then talk about your job just in one and done? We know that multiple discussions and multiple touches with the students with that career and exposure, that's what's going to make the conversations richer, because again, students can't be curious about something they don't know about or exposed to. So that was one thing we are definitely going to be taking away, plus some of the structures and talking with the community partners. Okay, so as we move into the next piece here, what was another opportunity that we knew we needed to be systematic about? And that was our extracurricular opportunity. And those of you that have done the designation process or thinking about the designation process, a big part of that is, what are some of your extracurricular? What are you offering your students through STEM for all students for after schools and beyond the school day? What kind of offerings are you offering? We did a great job in Knox County of having some really strong robotics high schools. We had some funding there. We have built some strong competitions there with First Robotics. But what we noticed about 2 years ago is that we didn't really have systematic pipeline to those high schools. So we had almost none of our middle schools, except for just a few, were doing robotics at all. and just very few of our elementary. So we had some conversations with Tennessee Valley Robotics. They kind of talked to us about how are you thinking about robotics? What kind of equitable ways of access do you have? Because FIRST is expensive. It's wonderful, but it's expensive. So how do we also make sure that we've got multiple avenues for our students and our schools? And we brought in a lot of VEX, which is something we had not done very much of in Knox County. And I believe our friends in Hamilton do a lot of VEX. So we were learning from them as well. And so Mallory's going to talk to you a little bit about that.
Oops. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, like Andrea said, we would go out to high schools and our high school robotics coaches were like, we can't get students interested in robotics because they've never been exposed. So we knew that we had to drop down into our middle schools and our elementary schools and expose our students to robotics because, like Andrea has said, you're not curious about something you don't know about. Or our one specific robotics coach would tell us, well, the kids just think they're not smart enough to do robotics because it's intimidating. So some things we did, we put VEX in several of our schools across the district with the help of Tennessee Valley Robotics. But also we received a FIRST equity grant from FIRST Robotics, which allowed us to really target one specific feeder pattern. We put FIRST Lego League in 2 elementary schools, FIRST Tech Challenge into the middle school, and then the high school was already a FIRST Robotics team. So that allowed us to really focus on that pipeline, strengthen their knowledge of robotics so that by the time they're in high school, they can continue that competitive nature, and really also exposing their families to what robotics is, because as you all know, when you get into high school, you have sports and jobs and other extracurricular activities. So showing parents that, robotics is like a sport. Robotics is just like any other after school activity and just as important.
I want to stop for just a second and answer Stephanie's question. What do you or the schools do with your community partners to make it a true partnership? So we're still working on that, Stephanie, but we have some community partners we go to and then some that come to us. And I think one way our first conversation, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, is kind of what level of investment do you want? Because some community partners have an entire department that can be dedicated to outreach, whereas others do not. They're the owner trying to do some outreach. So their level of investment is number one. And then we actually have some training meetings with them on basically how do we talk to the school? How do you talk to the kids? What are the kids really interested in? And how to, because there's a big jump from, they all want to go into high school. So how do you get them into those lower grades and having some of those conversations? And then we've seen this amazing investment that just happens that they always want to be part of it once we invest a little bit on the front end. And it's hard because we don't always have the manpower for that for the district wide, but we're certainly trying. We haven't refined it, but that's one of the touches that we have. Also seeing that, inviting them back to work with students and seeing how the students worked on a problem almost with them that was a problem that was real to them to solve through kind of a PBL process in that EDP process or dethinking process. That is also a very powerful lever as well, because they helped us determine what was the problem that they wanted the kids to solve. And that was very much investing. Okay, so another obstacle that a lot of you guys talked about and that we found was teacher career exposure. Now, we all want to have externships and internships for our teachers, and we had teachers in the workplace, and those are really great programs. But what we knew is systematically we had a lot of teachers that did not get any exposure, and we had to be more systematic in how we approached that. So Mallory's going to give you an example of a partnership that we did with Tickle Engineering and outline that for you.
Yeah, so we worked with the University of Tennessee, the College of Engineering, so Tickle Engineering at UT, and we worked really close with the Industrial and Systems Engineering department. So they came to us and they were like, what can we do? Because I'm sure you all have experienced this as well. Partners want to work with you, they just don't always know how. So we really had to talk to them about, okay, what is your goal? And then what was our goal? So we knew that our goal was to expose STEM, math, science teachers to real world engineering. But Tickle, their goal, they wanted to increase awareness, specifically in this case, about industrial and systems engineering. Because what's their ultimate goal? UT's right here in our backyard. They want Knox County students to come there. But we wanted them to expose our teachers so that our students were getting real world engineering. So what did that look like? We didn't just put this out to the district and say, whoever can sign up. And, you know, when we first talked to Tickle, they were like, oh, what if we do a Saturday? And you all know teachers are tired and they don't always want to sign up for something on a Saturday. So we strategically did it on our what we call District Learning Day, which is just an in-service day. I know all counties do it, but we call ours District Learning Day. And our teachers were actually able to go to Tennessee. So it was a great change of environment for them. They went to Tickle Engineering, which is it's a new fancy building. They went there, they fed them breakfast. We really marketed this to our elementary STEM team. Well, we had 2 days, I should say that. We had an elementary day and a secondary day. So we targeted our STEM teachers in both elementary and then middle and high, science and math teachers. And then we also, to kind of connect it back to that robotics connection, we targeted our robotics coaches because we are really proud of the fact that not all of our robotics coaches are a science or a STEM teacher. We have all walks of life that are interested in robotics, which we love. So we really targeted them because we knew if we can really dig into their need and their interest, they would benefit. So they went there, they ate breakfast, and then they split into 2 groups and solved 2 real world engineering problems, or industrial and systems engineering problems. One dealt with our local emergency room. So how can they make that system of being admitted into the hospital through the emergency room quicker? Interesting enough, this is actually a real problem that a student was working on that was a student at Tickle. So that student got to work with them. And then there were some engineering professionals that came in to work with them and talk about, okay, as a true engineer, this is what we think of. This is the data that we analyze. This is what we look at. So they worked on 2 different problems. And then you can see in the picture, they were able to present their problems to the other group and then talk about possible solutions. So they were truly a student throughout this process. Then we also visited their robotics bay. So they have a really competitive collegiate robotics team, and the students actually talked to our teachers. So we developed a really close partnership with them. The fact that we could do 2 different days, and then we still communicate with them talking about how can we further develop this relationship and this partnership. And then for our teachers, which a systematic piece that we truly are trying to work on, we had follow-up. So we would go back into our meetings with our STEM teachers, our science and math teachers, and say, okay, now that we know about this real world engineering, how can we take this into our classroom? How can you do this with your students?
And many of our teachers did not even know that there was industrial and systems engineering. ISO was one of the engineering majors, and it is one of the smaller engineering majors at Tickle. So that in itself, we had engineering teachers that did not know that. So it was a real learning opportunity for all involved. It was great.
Yeah. And just to answer before this question goes away, what was the name of the middle school robotics team? It was First Tech Challenge.
Okay, so going back to what our question was and our problem was, how does KCS Knox County Schools provide more opportunities for our students to have career exposure? We highlighted some of the levers for you today that we have been approaching, and we're continuing to refine and get better at. And I'm sure you've learned facets of all this today in other sessions as well. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the obstacles we've kind of encountered too. So one of the obstacles we've encountered are partners not knowing how to bring career conversations down to the student level. And Mallory has created a really great talking document with our partners that we're going to highlight for you, and they're also on this page if you look further down and click on that on the PDFs. And then another really interesting piece was longstanding community partners we're approaching the partnership in the same way. And remember what our motivation here was. It was to systematically introduce careers, either to our teachers and eventually to our students, or directly to our students. So a community partner like the Zoo Knoxville, which is one of our most amazing community partners that we had to have different conversations with them, because it became conversations about, well, what are the occupations that help run this zoo? What kind of career what do you have to do to be in a career like this? And can you come and highlight your careers, not just the animals? So that is not something that your typical longstanding community partners were thinking of, and really we didn't think of till we had the opportunity to really think of how are we going to introduce this in a different way. And then the last one that we've all talked about today is just teachers not knowing about careers. And we've tried to help that and scaffold that, and we're going to continue that journey. Again, many of our teachers went to school to be a teacher. We have some that are it's their second career, but they didn't have that career exposure. I mean, there's a reason why kids want to be a teacher, a doctor, and NBA star, is because that's what they're exposed to. So how do we really expose them beyond that? And same with the teachers. The teachers needed help with exposure to other careers as well.
Okay, so Andrea mentioned that this document that we created. So it's one way that we had to overcome the obstacle of communicating with community partners. I remember one of my first times that I met with a community partner myself. They had a goal, I had a goal, and navigating that conversation was difficult because they want to help, and they have, especially when we're thinking about elementary, maybe even middle school, they didn't know how to navigate. I have so many partners that will say, Mallory, I just don't know what a fourth grader knows. So this document really has helped us navigate that conversation with our partners. So we always, talk about what is our what is our purpose? What's that statement of purpose? What do we want out of this partnership? Because as you can see, we're working with partners in multiple facets. So from STEM camp to just the elementary classroom to CTE classrooms. So having that statement of purpose, what do we want, helps. And then the career awareness piece. So like Andrea mentioned, Zoo Knoxville, we love that they want to talk about animals, but they're not used to talking about themselves. So now that when we walk into a conversation, we can say, okay, we love to hear about, the monkeys, but also we want to hear about how did you have this interest of conservation? What's your education? What's your background? How did you come to Zoo Knoxville? And it's funny because they're a little flattered that we asked them those questions, but it really helps drive our conversation and the purpose of what the partnership will be. And then our partnerships understanding. So because there are multiple facets, because our partners maybe they've worked with a school in a one-off, and, we are a large district. So, we had to talk about, okay, as a partner, here's what, here's the time commitment we might need from you. Here's how often, because I just met with a partner the other day, but that partnership won't be executed for 6 months. So having that understanding of this is when we need you, this is, what capacity we will need you in, that's very helpful because, as you know, industry, they're busy, their world's changing often. So that really helped them. Content. So what content do we want to be covered is another important piece. And then a follow-up plan, because like I just mentioned, when we said we're not going to execute this partnership for 6 months. Okay, what's our follow-up? When are we going to touch base? And that helps all parties stay on track with that partnership.
And how many times have we, and I know I did when I was in middle school as well, is we had someone come in and speak to our class, and then that was kind of it. We may have written thank you notes, and that was just it. So having a follow-up plan on the front end of how can we continue our partnership, or what are your capabilities of being able to work with our students, is just a great plan to have. So thank you for putting that together. Okay, before we move on to the next slide, I would like for everyone to go to your chat and just put in one aha or one question or something that you've learned so far that was helpful. And then we're going to go to a little bit of a networking piece that we've got for you. Also, thinking about your next steps. What would be your next step in executing partnerships or even executing the career awareness piece in a systematic way? Thank you, Catherine. That's nice to hear. Mallory, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so the camps are held 4 weeks throughout the year. So July, fall break, spring break, and 1 week in June. And how do I make sure that they come back? So I'm thinking maybe you're talking about the community partner. How do we make sure they come back? So with this planning document, when I'm talking with them, I outline what the camp is, and then they kind of tell me what they can do. So some of our partners, like Train, for example, I just met with them, and they were like, we want to work with you over the course of a year with one school. So I just send them email reminders. We communicate that way. And then there are some partners that are like, I'm really busy. I just want to go to like 2 of your schools once. And so I just make sure I send them calendar invites. I touch base, a month or so before. So really just constant communication, but not too much. I don't want to overwhelm them, is the key for that partnership.
Okay, so on the page that you're on, you should be able to see a little tab. Mallory, what does that tab say? Is it like career links? Career link, I think it is. And it should take you to a Padlet. And so we just set up a Padlet. We don't have all the answers, everybody. You guys have some great answers. We even have some community partners in this session. So you should see on that Padlet a place where you can just put in the comments, and we can have a little bit of a treasure trove here of networking, of some ideas from the people in this group. So if you'll just take the next 2 minutes to go ahead and put in some ideas in that Padlet very quickly. Mallory, you may want to put that am I scientist? I am a scientist in there. Okay, and that Padlet link is yours, so you guys can add to that. We're going to add to that as well. It's great to hear some of the things that resonated with some of you guys, like that the partner sheet really helped with your thinking. That's great. There's a reason the word STEM is in systematic. Okay, guys, we're going to finish this up and just say, thinking about your next steps and thinking about what you've learned today. Think about what you can take from here and just make your planning with career exposure more systematic in your exposure. Thank you guys for taking the time with us today. It was such an honor to be here with all of you all, and that you took the time to just hear from us. And again, we don't have all the answers, but we just tried to share some of our obstacles and successes with you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.